So this question is from Freedom for All. Another amazing video. Thank you. Wondering if you could do a video on comparative gains between investing in older Richard Hart projects, meaning HEX, PHEX, and his newer ones, meaning Pulse and PulseX. Is it fair to say that $10,000 on Pulse or PulseX will have greater gains than HEX? Freedom for All, thank you for your question. And first thing I'd say is I wish that I had a crystal ball and I can see in 2 years what the price of HEX is and what the price is of Pulse and PulseX. And then I could tell you exactly what to buy. But unfortunately, I can't. So the best thing we could do is speculate. On the one hand, probably the biggest reason why people are going for Pulse and PulseX is because they are new projects and they feel like they missed out on HEX already. It's already been around for 3 years. It did a 10,000x in under 2. You're getting in at many multiples of the HEX OGs, and the gains to be had are just not as great. One, because of the law of diminishing returns, which states basically that as an asset matures, it requires more economic energy to move the price. There are a lot of people out there that are sitting on mad gains, and when the price goes up, they're going to want to cash out. It'll put some weight on the price appreciation. You see that very clearly with Bitcoin and even Ethereum. Pulse and PulseX are new products, meaning generally with new products, there is more excitement. There's a buzz. When people hear, oh yeah, there's this new token out there, they want to get in and they're willing to just throw their money at it, especially if it's going up a lot. Also, people would say that there's less resistance. There are very few people ahead of you in terms of profits. So less likely of a dumpage until considerably higher valuations, I guess would be the way to phrase it. People have to understand that HEX is not Bitcoin and Ethereum. Bitcoin is over 10 years old. It's 12 years old at this point. So everyone, I think, is underestimating the potential for HEX to run up. Another thing I'd say is, personally, I still believe that HEX has the better game theory. And the reason why is because most people that buy HEX are staking it. And the average is 6.5 years, meaning these people are not going to sell for a considerable amount of time. On the other hand, Pulse and PulseX, Pulse has the burn, which is obviously good, but all of the 35,000 wallets that sacrifice for Pulsechain are able to sell at any time. And the same can be said for PulseX. PulseX has the buy and burn, which is great game theory. I mean, it does take away a percentage of the liquidity, but at the end of the day, despite the buyback and burn by the AMM bot, every single one of those 125,000 people can sell. Make no mistake, this buyback and burn and, the burning of the fees, the deflationary tokenomics is very good in the long run. But when there's a massive run up in price, I don't think it's fair to say, in my opinion, obviously, that the buy pressure from the AMM bot is going to have enough volume to protect the price against the plebs that all want to get out on their 10, 20, 30, 100x to get their Lambo. You cannot say that with HEX. In the case of HEX, everyone that's buying now and throwing it down 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, up to 15 years, they are not going to sell it. Also with HEX, you have the T-shares. So the combination of the constant rising of the T-share rate in HEX terms, along with the fact that people that want to earn the yield have committed to not selling, is superior to a fee burn or buyback and burn from an AMM bot. Inflation to protect the price is superior to deflation to protect the price. Not saying that Pulsechain and PulseX have bad game theory. I think the game theory is probably superior to pretty much every other crypto, but I still believe that the game theory of HEX is superior to that of Pulsechain and PulseX. Another thing is when you talk about Pulsechain and PulseX outperforming HEX in terms of X's, you're probably not factoring in that between now and Pulsechain launch, you are going to be earning interest. You are also going to have all of your HEX copied over onto the Pulsechain, and you're going to have all your T-shares copied over. So regarding the question of Pulsechain and PulseX outperforming HEX as it is now, it has to outperform HEX as well as the copy that you're getting, as well as the interest that you will be accumulating. So on the one hand, you have Pulsechain and PulseX, which are new projects, which is huge in terms of a marketing standpoint and in terms of sell pressure. New projects generally do insane during bull runs. On the other hand, you have the fact that, in my opinion, HEX has superior game theory. You're getting everything copied over, which you can't say the same for Pulsechain and PulseX, and you are also getting the interest earned from staking. So really, there's no way of knowing. And if I had to speculate, I believe in the long run, meaning over the next 5, 10, 15 years, HEX will outperform, especially factoring in the copy and the interest earned, because if you're staked for 6, 7 years, you're going to be getting 3x your bag just from that, on top of the hundreds or thousands of X that you're going to be getting as well. So I think your return on investment, not financial advice, in my personal opinion, the return on investment from HEX over the next 5, 10, 15 years is going to be better than that of Pulsechain and PulseX. But in terms of the next 2 years, or like the first bull run that Pulsechain and PulseX will go through, which will likely be sometime in the next 2 years, but we obviously don't know. We don't have a crystal ball. I would say Pulsechain runs harder than HEX. So Pulsechain, yes. PulseX, I don't think so. And the reason for that is because in the case of Pulsechain, you have 35,000 wallets that sacrificed, which means that 35,000 people are going to be holding Pulsechain in comparison to the 125,000 wallets that sacrificed for PulseX, which is actually more than the current amount of wallets staking HEX. So think about that. You have more people that are holding PulseX, which has a nice staking mechanism, but can be sold at any time in comparison with HEX. The idea that PulseX will outperform HEX, just eHEX currently, is possible, but the idea that it will outperform your eHEX plus your copied pHEX plus your interest over the next 2 years is unlikely, in my opinion. In the case of Pulsechain, you have about a quarter of the wallets that hold PulseX holding Pulsechain. Basically, you have 4 times as many wallets holding PulseX as there are wallets holding Pulsechain. I'm sure that these people are going to want to buy Pulsechain. So it is likely that Pulsechain is going to run up very, very high. So even despite the fact that you're getting a copy of HEX on Pulsechain, I still think first 2 years, since all those wallets that sacrifice for PulseX are going to want to be buying Pulsechain because they missed the sacrifice, including myself, I just believe that Pulsechain is going to outperform HEX despite the fact that you're getting a copy of HEX and you're earning yield. But here's the thing, even though it will likely outperform HEX, the odds of you catching all those multiples and getting out at the top is extremely, extremely slim. You should consider it a given that you're not going to get it because everyone's trying to catch it. And that would be timing the market. And when people try to time the market, they usually lose. It's pretty much gambling. Not saying you shouldn't take profits, but the idea that you are going to wait for the top, which is at whatever it is, 500, 1,000, 10,000x, get out at the right time and get that 10,000x is very unlikely. But in the case of HEX, let's say it's going to do a 10,000x over the next 6, 7, 8 years. If you're staked for 7 to 15 years, you are guaranteed to get that ROI. So even though I believe that Pulsechain will outperform in terms of X's in the first 2 years, due to the likelihood that you are not going to catch all those multiples, the idea that Pulsechain is superior and you shouldn't buy HEX and only buy Pulsechain, I don't think that's a given, which is why I believe that you should be owning all of them. You should be owning HEX, you should be buying and staking HEX now, you should be owning Pulsechain, and you should be owning PulseX. As far as which one will do better in the long run, Pulsechain or PulseX, there's really no way of knowing. I mean, you'd be guessing at this point, which is why you should be holding both. It's still important to maintain that everything that I'm saying is pretty much speculation. I mean, there's some variables that we know about, like the 35,000 Pulsechain wallets that sacrifice in comparison to the 125,000, which obviously makes a difference. But at the end of the day, there are so many variables, including what projects get hot next bull run. Maybe DEXs get hot and, all that goes out the window, or some whale just puts a ton of money into PulseX and just pumps it to the moon. I mean, we just don't know, which is why, in my opinion, the best thing to do is to buy all of them. If you have $10,000, you should be putting 1/3 into HEX now and creating your staking ladder, 1/3 into Pulsechain, and 1/3 into PulseX. And then just dollar cost average, the odds of you being at a great position in the next 4 or 5 years are extremely, extremely high. So to summarize, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know which project is going to do better. Also, it's not as simple as which one will have more X's. You also have to consider the fact that in HEX, you're getting the copy. You're also going to have the yield. Pulsechain likely will outperform HEX and PulseX in the short run because of its scarcity and the fact that there are so many people that want to get in. But in the long run, I believe HEX will outperform Pulse and PulseX. We just don't know, but we do know that great projects generally do well over time. And HEX on Ethereum, HEX on Pulsechain, Pulse Chain and PulseX are excellent projects and they will do well. So if you buy all of them, then you will likely do well. If you try and speculate on which one is going to do better, you may or may not do well. So my answer, not financial advice, would be 1/3 into HEX now, so it could get staked and earn interest as well as be copied over onto the Pulse chain. 1/3 into PulseX and 1/3 into Pulse chain. Thanks for watching, and freedom for all. I appreciate your engagement and your commentary and your questions. Please like and subscribe and comment. I love hearing what you guys have to say. And also please follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. I would like to use my Twitter more, but obviously I want to get more engagement. Thank you.